So this is the second part of this demo, and we're at the point where we've worked out the basic proportions, and now we're going to do some quick block in of the rough values so that we can start to, excuse me, imagine patterns of light and shade. So sometimes squinting your eyes helps a lot, and making sure that you have a single light source from the side. So if you didn't do that while you were doing the measurement, now is the time to turn on a single light source. Try to get it from the side. It's nice if you can get a little bit of light hitting that far cheek to create a little triangle of light there, but even a half and half view like mine is going to be fine. So I'm squinting my eyes and I'm kind of noticing, I'm going to just quickly start blocking in some values here so that we can start to think about big shapes of light and dark. And really I've got, I'm going to have tone on even where the eyes are, so I'm going to kind of block in. I'll lose some of the information temporarily, but we'll be getting it right back. So this is where having a pre-toned piece of paper is going to save you some time. Alright, so I think that the front plane of my nose is actually getting some raking light, and then this eye has also got quite a bit of shadow on it, including the eyeball itself, so put a little, don't be afraid to let some, and there's a little bit of shadow here on the cheek and on the lower lid. And then I'm just going to bring in some darks on the hair too, so I can start to see these relative values. So the ear's all in shadow. And this side of the neck is all in shadow too, including really this whole side of my shoulder. So I'm just going to let that dark go right off the side there. And then so you can do subtle stuff by just picking up a little charcoal from one area and bringing it over into another area. And I do want to start bringing in some darks in the background. I intentionally set up this quilt behind me so that I would have some shadow on the light side of my face and some light on the dark side, but you can also use artistic license to manipulate the value that you are really seeing in order to have a little bit more difference there. So I'm going to, on this side where a little bit of light is hitting my hair is pretty dark, but I still want this to be a little bit lighter than the background. And then also for the ear, I want to kind of soften some of those values to suggest a little more depth, and bring my earrings in later. So I'm going to go ahead and use a little compressed charcoal, I think, at this point to get a little bit more durable background in here. And it's okay to let the value transition. Notice how it's dark on this side of my face in the photograph, but by the time I get over here it's light again. So I'm going to just kind of let it gradually blend out. And then it's up to me if I want to, I could make it get dark here again. I don't know that it's helping a lot, but sure, what the heck. So add a little bit of dark there too to kind of cover up some of my notes. Okay, so right along the ear, I can give a little bit more structure to that contour, and my jawline and my neck. Here. But I don't want the background to be too busy, so I'm going to just kind of blend it all to a kind of... Now my shirt is kind of a mid-value, so even though this part is in light, I do want it to be a little bit brighter than the part that's over here. So I'm going to press a little bit harder on the charcoal as we get over to this side of my body. And I might be able to see a few little creases coming up from the armpits there. Alright, and I think I might do a little bit of darks just to kind of... I want to make sure that the darks on my face aren't as dark as my hair. So if I can get some of those darks from the hair in, then I'll know that's my limit for how dark I want things to go. And I'm not going as dark on this side because that's the side that the light is coming from. Alright, and then let's buff in some of that value in the background. So we're starting to get some of those tones established. And then I want to start bringing in a little bit darker shadows. So I'm looking at the nose. I think what I want to do is start thinking about those planes of the nose. And so I'm looking at the shape of light that's hitting the nose here. And then I also want to bring in the shape of light that's, so I've got sort of this light from, it's not truly half and half, it's like 1/3 of my face is in light. So there's sort of this point where my forehead transitions from light to dark. My eyes are kind of sunken in shadows on this side. And there's also a shadow that connects the two eye sockets. So notice how the dark continues right across where my brows are. So I'm going to go a little bit darker there. And then there's a little bit of a darker spot here, like between on my forehead, toward the middle of the forehead. And then I see a bit of a shadow core over here. So I'm going to see if I can get that forehead to feel like it's kind of, there's some reflected light on this side. That's pretty subtle, but I want that shadow core to kind of help give a little more volume to the face. And then on this side, I'm noticing I'm kind of losing my eye structure a little bit, but I can kind of get that back in there. So I need a similar distance on both eyes. There's a little bit of a, where my lower lid is, there's a light change there. So there's a little bit of dark here, but on this other eye I see a lighter shape there. So I want to go a little bit darker below that. And it seems like it's darker on this side. So it's sort of the opposite of what's happening on the light side of the face. There's reflected light coming in on this side that's a little bit more noticeable there. And this eye is all in shadow, so don't erase your eyes to bright white if they are in shadow. You want it to really feel like it's back in the shadow and not glowing, you know. So often the whites of the eyes are usually a similar value to the skin color if you're Caucasian, and they may not stand out that noticeably against the color of your skin. All right, and then there's also some shadow here, kind of where the cheek is, a little bit here too. You want some tone at the edges of the contour, or else the face will seem like it's just right out at the front of the page. So, and I think even at the ear here, I'm going to kind of soften that contour a little bit so that the ear doesn't pop out quite as distinctly as the forehead and the front of the face does. Okay, so I'm going to keep that pretty light along that shoulder, or that corner of my forehead. And then we're starting to get a little bit of volume on the nose, but I want to be a little bit more distinct about where that shadow edge is. A shadow core that comes up there and here. And there's a little bit of reflected light on this side of the nose, but it's pretty subtle. So I just want it to be, to give a sense of another plane that's going down into the shadow side. And I'm going to try to reclaim that nostril I lost a little bit and this wing of the nose. There. So you're going to do a lot of drawing and then kind of rubbing out. If you've got a blending stump, that's pretty useful. Also think about how the nose casts a little bit of a shadow on that lip below it, so allow that lip to go into shadow as well. This side of the lip, it looks like, has also got some shadow. I think I'm just going to add some tone to almost all of this, including my lips, and then we'll try to sculpt it back out again. So the left side of my lip is a little bit darker than the right side, which is getting a little bit of light. But continue to think of these as just shapes. You're not really trying to bring in a lot of outlines because we don't really see a lot of outlines on the face when you're looking at real life. Okay, I feel like go a little bit more distinct with that line between the lips and the nostrils maybe. The other thing is the bottom side of your nose, you know, the bottom plane of your nose needs a little bit of shadow too, so that will help kind of sink your nostrils back into the shadows a little bit if you surround it with some darker tones there. So you keep squinting because you don't want to add lines where you don't really see lines. If you can see a crisp edge, you've got to figure out why it is. Is it because it's got a darker background around it? Like I think on this side of the nose, I can see that wing of the nose pretty clearly, but it's only because there's a darker area on the cheek right beside it. It's not really a line, it's just a shape of value. So you're going to be spending quite a bit of time just kind of working back and forth. Try a line. If it doesn't look quite right, you know, move it, try a different spot. And then I want some shadow on the chin here. Actually, the chin's really quite a bit in shadow, so that might also make the jaw feel a little bit smaller. It felt really big when it was just line work, but I think once you get some shadow up there on the chin, it won't seem quite so huge. And I'm starting to see your face come up. So get some eyes in there and see what we're getting. It's getting really big. You can also get charcoal pencils. I tended not to use the charcoal pencils too much, but in little cases like drawing the eye, it could be helpful. So this is probably about as far as you'd want to get on your second part of the project. Just get the basic shapes of light and shadow blocked in pretty simply. I mean, there's still quite a bit of work I need to do to try to make this look like me, but when you squint your eyes at your drawing, you squint your eyes at yourself in the mirror or at the drawing that you're working from, the photo that you're working from, you just want to see the same patterns of light and shadow in both places. So spend some time until you're pretty happy. I think this needs to be kicked back a little bit, but yeah, we're getting closer. So I'm going to turn it off here. I'm going to do a little bit more work you should be spending a few hours on these, so I don't want to have you just have to sit here and watch me fuss back and forth with the drawing. But as I get closer and I feel like I've got a likeness, I'll try to point out some of the things that I did that helped fix the drawing. So again, this is the early rough stage of it, but the basic value structure is in place. So that's really what I'm going to be looking for the second part of this portrait assignment. Thank you.